I was always looking for somebody that did things differently, that didn't just sit and read a highlight. And it was embarrassing, but I love to make people laugh too. So I'm able to laugh at myself. So it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And people laughed at my sports challenges all the time. I'd see people out in the community being like, are you ever going to win one?
Welcome to the Next Level Journalist, where you will hear from some of the best journalists in the business or who have been there, done that, and willing to share with you what they've learned so you can get better, faster. Today's guest is someone I've known since 2008 when I was the weekend sports anchor / reporter at KOSA TV in Odessa, Texas. She was the sports director at the station. She spent just under 10 years in the TV industry, most of that time as a sports director at multiple stations. Krista Lander, well, now Krista Lisser, thank you for making time for this today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Give us an idea of what your career journey was like, if you will, from, going back to when you pursued, TV journalism to the time that you got out.
So I started really wanting to do television when I was a senior in high school, and it really spawned off of this trip to Washington, D.C. I made. My government teacher decided I was a good fit for this law seminar thing because I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I went, and the day we land, it was November 7th, 2000, which was a huge election debacle between Bush and Al Gore. And there was so much media. And I was like, that looks a whole lot more fun than this law thing that we're doing right now, because you have to read and write a lot and it was just too much. So I decided I wanted to go into television, and I thought I wanted to do more political reporting, more news reporting. And I started, at the University of Central Oklahoma at our TV station. And as I started doing news, it really just wasn't filling me up like I had hoped it would. And I had been an athlete my whole life. I had played 3 sports in high school. I played soccer, I played basketball, and I played softball. And I really wanted to get into sports. And so they let me get into sports after some coercing, because there weren't a lot of girls at school at the time that were doing sports.
Right.
That was in 2003. And really I know that was 17 years ago, but it's really not that long ago. So you would think that's crazy that there weren't a lot of women, even just that in that recent past, but there weren't. And so I got in doing that. And about 7 days after I graduated college, I got a job offer to be the weekend sports person in Twin Falls, Idaho. I moved out there sight unseen. Really didn't think much about the state of Idaho, but had a great time there for 3 years, and then got the job in Midland, Odessa, Texas to be the sports director. While in Idaho, I got promoted to sports director about after a year and a half. Moved to Texas, and then got a job 3 years later after Texas, or spent 3 years in Texas, then got a job in Springfield, Illinois as the sports director, which is where I still currently live after getting out of the business to get into public relations.
So again, as the sports director at multiple stops, you had to wear multiple hats. A lot of people think, that are not in this business, and maybe those that are just getting into it think that, you might just show up and, look good on TV and that's your job. But it's a little different. Talk about the different hats, the multiple hats that you have to wear on a given day.
Yeah, I'm so many people. Including members of my family. I think my mom still thinks that that's what I did. Is this I read things on television, but so many people think that you at 6 and 10 you're sitting there and you read things and then you just kind of hang out until you do it again. But as a sports director, especially at the market sizes I was at, always a 2-person sports department, never more than 2 people. So at least 2 days a week, either one of you are on your own, so there's 4 days really of the whole week where there's only one person in your sports department. So you were in charge of mapping everything out, mapping all the content out every day, producing your shows for 6 and for 10. When I was in Idaho, I had 5 minutes at 10 o'clock, like every night. And I'm like, in Idaho, what are you going to fill in Idaho for 5 minutes? So, they would send down, there's people who are Rockies and Mariners fans there. And I remember in the summer, especially in the summer, like airing every single Mariners highlight that was sent down on the feed. So it was like 2.5 minutes of this Mariners highlight. It was atrocious. But So you're in charge of filling that time. You're in charge of mapping everything out. When it comes to, the football shows, you and I did a football show in West Texas. Doesn't really get much bigger than that, than doing a high school football show in West Texas. That was something I did every Wednesday, and then, Thursday, Friday, tweaked it as we went along. It took that long to put together a 20-minute show on high school football. And so you're constantly doing that on top of you're the one getting the highlights. People see you out at these games and sometimes they were shocked. They're like, oh, what are you doing here? Well, this, if I wasn't here, you wouldn't have highlights. Like, it's not like I sit there and just read the highlights for you. So you got to go and you got to shoot the highlights. You got to bring them back. You got to edit them. You got to write them. And when you're fortunate enough to have both of you that night in the sports department, you're trying to say, okay, you go to this game, I'll go to that game. It's a lot of logistics. I mean, you're in charge of all the logistics of the sports department, which when you're talking about football games or basketball games for Friday night shows, that's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people to count on. So that was part of that aspect of just really managing the whole thing, on top of managing also the department, making sure everything's getting covered, making sure your weekend person is happy, at least working as a team together with them and really molding that department to be a team atmosphere.
When it came time for you to find your next addition to the sports department, in any of the, markets that you were in, what did you look for when, you were going through resume tapes, right? At the time.
Yeah.
And then reels, links eventually came. What did you look for in, qualified candidates?
Really, I remember someone told me once when I was looking for a job, you got like 5 seconds at the beginning of your tape for somebody to grab your attention. And I was always looking for somebody that did things differently, that didn't just sit and read a highlight. For me, it was about storytelling. And I guess you could say that's kind of the woman thing. We want to hear about stories, but I think stories in sports are so important. I mean, I know my husband cries still at Tom Rinaldi. I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw you cry at Tom Rinaldi, Kyle, a few times in the sports office in Texas. But
he's good.
It's good. I just remember you going, every time Tom Rinaldi, I can't. But so, I mean, to have that emotional impact, and obviously, with a resume tape, you're not going to get that right off the bat, but you can tell when people do things differently. Like in Texas, I did Krista Sports Challenges. That was kind of my little niche thing that I did. I took on kids and adults and everybody of all ages in their sports. Yeah. That was the first thing I put on the front of my reel because it was different. I mean, I remember specifically when I got the job in Springfield, like one of the first 2 clips was me in a boxing rink getting punched in the face by a guy. And that's what grabs. You have to do things to grab their attention, because when you really think about it, there's 208 markets, I think now, and maybe still, some of them are combining, so I don't. But at the time, 208 markets, maybe 2 people in a sports department, maybe. Sometimes now they're down to 1, and you have about 3 stations sometimes in those markets. So think about how many jobs are out there. Not many, and the candidates, a lot. There is a lot. So you have to find what's really going to pull your personality out in those first 5 seconds to catch that attention. That's kind of just what I looked for when I looked at reels or links, was, that first pop of energy. You can tell if they enjoy what they do. You can tell if they're going to be good at the rest of the tape is going to be good really in those first few seconds, which is really odd, but that's the most crucial part of your tape.
That's really good, because 5 seconds, that's short. I mean, I've heard 15 seconds, but even still, that's not a whole lot of time. But I love how you talked about just something different, because so often, even when I see reels and stuff today, it's stand-ups. It's people at the desk, which you expect to see that. But if you want to be different, I love how you said that. I love how you shared that you put the sports challenges first. Talk about unique. I'm sure no one else had that.
Especially not girls, if you're looking, because now, and I know there will be women that are watching this now you're not as unique as I was when I was in it. There's a lot of women now in sports not only the local level, but the national level. So to be able to have something that really just pulls, like you said, something different, because you'll get to the stand-ups, you'll get to the anchoring in your tape, but you need them to get there first. Mm-hmm. And that's really where you need to showcase that. And then your storytelling ability. To me, that was always, did they include a great story in their tape? That's what's crucial, especially when you're looking for a weekend sports person, because that person, the other 3 days of the week that they're working, are going to be telling those stories and shooting those stories and writing those stories and finding those stories for you.
That's really good, Krista. When you, think about aspiring journalists or even current journalists, people who are in the business but maybe don't have the right, training or mentoring, if you will, what advice would you give someone who's trying to get better at their craft, like how they can get better? Because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, mm-hmm. and you don't have the right people teaching you. So you've been there, done that. You've seen what works, what doesn't work, and what you'd like to see more of. What would you say to someone in that position?
Ask everyone. No one is beneath you. It doesn't matter. I remember I learned so much from you. And really, I don't really feel like, there might have been times where I thought I was a little on my high horse, which I shouldn't have been. But I think really we worked for the most part as a team, and really were a team. And I know I bounced ideas off of you all of the time and always sought your advice. Ask everybody, even, the newest person in the newsroom, whoever, to the most experienced person in the newsroom. And then beyond that, this business is so small. There's generally somebody that you're going to know, or somebody who knows somebody that's made it to a top 50 market, a top 25 market, a top 10 market. And generally what I've found is people want to help you. So send your link to somebody and say, hey, can you just take a look at this and tell me, it doesn't have to be your resume link. It could just be like, hey, here's the sportscast I did last night, or here is the story, this feature story I did last week. What would you have done different? What could I have done different? What can I be better at? And I did that a lot. I interned in Cleveland, which was a top market, top 20 market, my junior year in college. And I had a producer, which she was a sports producer in that department, which always a lot of my sounding board, even when I was in Texas looking to move on, I would always send her my link and she would always look at it and give me feedback. Find that person that will help you and really give you feedback. Or even, I remember we worked with a girl named Melissa Correa who went on to work in Richmond, Virginia. And I remember I sent my link to her because they were hiring for a sports director, and she gave it to her news director, not because I was applying for the position, but just because I wanted him to look at it and tell me what I needed to do differently. And so, keep in touch with those people you work with, keep in touch with those people that you intern with, send them your stuff and just ask them for help. I mean, you just say, hey, I just want your feedback and your thoughts on this. And even if their station's looking for a job, don't try to be too pushy about it. Like, hey, I want a job here, but, ask for their feedback, and then you never know what might happen. And then also you're getting really valuable advice and honest advice from people. Because even when you ask people close to you that you might work with, they might not be as honest because they have to see you day in and day out, and they don't want to tell you some things maybe, but ask people.
Yeah, no, that's really good stuff too. The proximity to people and the fact that it's such a small network of people, and the right people are going to help you out. And all that stuff you just said, that's, so good. The right people will help, pull you up through the ranks. It's funny, I was talking to Mary Jo Perino on here. She was the main sports anchor in Lexington when I first got on there. And of course, she talked to me about how they had an intern, Jeremy Rao, who I said, well, that's who Krista worked with in Illinois. And it's just like, that shows you how small this really is. And if we dug even deeper, we could say, hey, I know this person who knew that person. So don't burn any bridges. Take everything Krista just said, re-rack that, listen to it again, because all that was great stuff. So Krista, what do you think contributed, to your success, your abilities, what you think that maybe you did uniquely or different? Obviously the Krista Sports Challenge jumps off the page, so that may be your answer, but is there anything else, or you want to elaborate on just what made you successful over the time of being in TV?
So yeah, obviously the sports challenges really set me apart, but that wasn't until I made the jump to Springfield that got me, gave me a jump in my career. It set me aside in Texas. I think it made me relatable to viewers. But just starting out for me and I'm only speaking as a woman, but even for guys that are getting into it, no sports. There's so many times, even men and women that I see on TV, and it's like, how did you land in the sports department? Like, I remember watching a guy here in Springfield after I had left that would always say, like, during a baseball game, it's 1-0. Well, no, nil is a soccer term. Like, know your stuff. And I think that's what really might have set me apart, is I knew about sports. I've always been able to sit and watch a football game, which apparently people think this is weird for a girl, and know exactly why they threw a flag, and well, that was offsides, but I remember teaching girls in college the game of football, so their boyfriends would be like, oh wow, you're pretty smart. I'm like, how do you not get this? It's just a game. Like, look, they threw a flag, the guy jumped over sides before they snapped the ball, but they let the play continue because they could game. And so know your stuff, know what you're talking about, and be really invested in the community that you're in, because I think especially when you start out in small markets, people want you to be invested, because I wasn't from anywhere where I landed. I mean, I wasn't from Idaho. I wasn't from Midland, Odessa, Texas. While I'm originally from Illinois, I was not from Springfield. And didn't know a lot of the area teams around here. But when you get invested in especially high school sports and into your community, then people get invested in you, and it shows in your work.
That's great, Krista. Let's try to have a lighthearted moment here, and you probably have tons of these, but is there a most embarrassing moment on TV? And again, this isn't fair because Krista, the sports challenges, are those on YouTube? Can we watch them? Are there anywhere that people can see those? I'm sure there's got to be some of them out there.
There are some on there. I know our show closes because we did so Kyle and I did a weekly sports.
Oh, you got me into this.
So we did a weekly sports show as well. And at the end, we had this producer named Gary Williams, and he came up with some trippy, like at the end, we had to like act out these things. I mean, like he would create these skits, it had nothing to do with the show. It did have something to do with sports. I mean, my favorites are rap battle, when Shaq and who was it got in that battle, the rap battle, Shaq and
I don't remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can picture us.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was. And so we had to, like, Gary created this show clothes where we were rappers, and I mean, it was ridiculous.
We just went with the flow. We didn't ask any questions. We just set fires on the outside of the station when LeBron quit, and we just
we lit a fire and I don't even know if we asked anybody, but we just did it. We had lighter fluid and lit a jersey on fire. I mean, it was something. Yeah. And then the sports challenges, I know I had sent you one where I'm diving. I did a diving challenge with these little kids.
I'm going to play that over this part. Go ahead.
Okay. So I did a diving challenge with these. Midland, Texas has some great divers. Like, these little kids are jumping off these huge platforms. And so they challenged me. And first of all, I'm not a great swimmer. Second of all, I cannot dive. So my very first dive, which you're going to see right here, is off of this springboard, and I straight up belly flopped. It hurt so bad. It was embarrassing, but I love to make people laugh too. So I'm able to laugh at myself. So it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And people laughed at my sports challenges all the time. I'd see people out in the community being like, are you ever going to win one? I think overall, like, I was like 4-62 over my time of doing them or something. I mean, it was ridiculous, but that was probably an embarrassing moment for me on television. And then as far, like, I'm sure I had embarrassing moments. I worked in Idaho, and you had to operate your own prompter with your foot. And there was definitely times I embarrassed myself because my prompter got messed up. And that's kind of one of those panic embarrassment moments that you can have on TV because you're stuck where you're going to go. So,
gosh, if only social media was back then what it is today. I mean, like there are some of your sports challenges would have went crazy viral. Like I have no doubt some of those things would have went, just crazy. It's hard to believe, I don't think people can wrap their mind around the fact that, this is 2008, 9, and I guess 2008 and 9 when you and I worked together, but social media was not what it is today. Some of them were out there, but they certainly were not, as powerful as they are today. So, I can only imagine the number of retweets of that belly flop. That's it.
I mean, I now that you brought that up, now that I think about it, like I wouldn't even really need a job now. I don't think. I think I would be a viral sensation. But I was thinking about that the other day when you had reached out wanting to do this again, just about social media. And we're talking, like you said, 10 years ago, maybe, at least like by the time you went off to West Virginia and I was still in Texas, was 2010. So 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get, like, we still relied on people to call in scores.
Yeah.
We still relied on people to give us information via email or telephone. Like there was Facebook and I think Twitter was around, but it wasn't really a big thing. There wasn't information on that, and there was no Instagram. There was none of these things. YouTube was around, but it was very, it was very small and just what you were starting to put your stuff, like basically used for videos, like your resume tape or just videos of things, not videos of sports challenges that people would retweet. So
yeah,
no, it kind of makes me a little
yeah. It's still hard work and still a lot of work, but if you can really put into perspective what went into it, just little things that you would get overlooked. Yeah, if someone didn't call on the score, you had to call the local gas station or something like that, because odds are good someone knew at the local gas station what the football score was. It was crazy.
Yep. Yeah, it was. And I remember we did that for our football shows in Texas. I remember Gary, who ran the board, would call a gas station in McCamey, Texas, and say, hey, what was the final score? And those were his contacts. That's what he had. And that's just crazy. And it's not like we're talking like, this is not 1970 people. This was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's nuts how much social media is blown up.
Well, speaking of going back in time, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self as you're getting into this field, this industry, what would you tell yourself that would set you up for maybe less failures and more successes, or the best piece of advice that you would hand off to yourself?
First of all, I'd say enjoy every moment of it. If you are watching this and you're not in the business yet, there's a lot to look forward to. If you are in the business, you have to, I hope you realize what unique experiences you're getting to have. Just the experiences that, we covered Dallas Cowboy training camp all the time, and the Texans training camp and the Midland Rockhounds. They're a AA affiliate, but we got to meet Roger Clemens and Ricky Henderson and all of these guys that are idols for people, that not necessarily idols, but people they look up to in the sports world that are giants in the sports world. And at the time I thought it was cool, but I don't think I really realized the gravity of it all and that not everyone gets those experiences. So really soak it in and enjoy it. Enjoy that you get to be a person that your community looks to for information. I remember when I worked in Springfield, kind of towards the end of my career, and I'm sure Kyle, you remember, football coaches would get mad at me because I aerate their football fields. I'd wear high heels to shoot football all the time. But I remember walking into a gym, and I always dressed up for work for the most part. And I was in heels and a skirt. And I remember a mom came up to me and said, you know what, I am so glad that you represent yourself the way you do, because it gives my daughter somebody to look up to. And I think if I tell my younger self, like, you're going to be seen, and you're going to be seen as a role model, even though you're just doing a local television job. It's not like you're, first of all, not making millions, not even thousands, but sometimes $1,000.
Yeah.
But you're getting to be a real part of your community and somebody that someone respects in your community. So keep that in mind as you go throughout your career. And so that's really, I think, more of a personal level of what I would tell myself. And also I would tell myself, just don't I felt like I was always kind of eyeing the next move, no matter where I was. I was like, oh, I want to move up here and I want to go here. Give yourself goals, but just because like sometimes I feel I let myself down because I didn't make it to the Big Ten Network or ESPN where I wanted to be. But I think I finished and I was where I was supposed to be the whole time, and sometimes didn't enjoy that ride because I was always looking to try to be national when you can really make a difference and really hone your craft right where you are.
That's great. Chris, is there anything else that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask you? I know there's plenty we could talk about, but I want to make sure we don't go too crazy on time here. I want to respect your time, but is there anything else that you want to add that you think, I want to share this with, especially this audience, that they need to know about this business, this industry?
Obviously you're in it. If you're already in it, you're not going to make a whole ton of money. So if you're not in it yet, don't think that you're going to, make $1 million doing it, but it's going to be an experience that no one else is ever going to have in their lifetime. So enjoy it. Like I just mentioned, and enjoy the ride that you're on. And really, I would also say the people that you work with in television become your family. So I think that, my piece of advice would be like, really, really become close with those people that you work with, because they're going to be your friends really probably your whole life, because you're all thrown into this swamp of a situation that is unique from any other career in your life. So, embrace those people. And like we said, it's a small business and you never know when they might be able to pull you up, or you can pull them up wherever you are later on.
Yep, no doubt. Krista, thank you so much again for your time. I have no doubt we'll do this again in the future, because there's plenty more we could talk about from your old days, from my old days, from our old days working together in Texas. So I hope we can do this again soon.
Absolutely. Hopefully next time I won't run out of makeup before we shoot this. Yeah, I'm glad this wasn't a makeup tutorial.
And thank you for checking out this channel. If you found this content beneficial, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you think might find it beneficial as well, because this channel was simply started and created to serve you, to help others grow, to learn how other successful TV journalists do or did it. So take what serves you so you can get better faster and reach your next level.